Hello, I'm Gordon Lang, editor of CameraLabs.com, and I'd like to give you a brief video tour around the Pentax K10D. Here it is, the K10D. It's the top of the range digital SLR from Pentax. It features 10 megapixel resolution, built-in shake reduction that actually shifts the main CCD sensor in order to combat camera shake, and because it's built into the body it'll work with any lens you attach, and also anti-dust facilities. The first thing you notice when you pick up the K10D is that it's a very solid, well-built camera. Pentax has also put a great deal of effort into the design of the camera, so it's very comfortable to hold. You'll see on the right hand side here that there's a really decent sized grip, but there's also a small grip on the left hand side. You can see a little lip here. Now of course with most digital SLRs you'd use your left hand to support the lens. However, Pentax produces several limited edition lenses that are very short. So short in fact that you can't use your left hand to hold them underneath very comfortably. So it's nice to be able to hold this camera on both sides if you're using one of those lenses. K10D is also prepared for many conditions. Pentax has equipped it with no fewer than 72 dust and weather resistant seals. Although to have full environmental sealing, you'll also need to equip it with a lens that supports dust and weather resistance, such as one of the new DA Star models. The K10D also has several features that make it pretty unique compared to its rivals. We're going to have a look at some of those right now. One of the first unusual things you'll notice about the K10D is a button dedicated to RAW on the side of the camera. This switches the K10D from Jpeg to RAW plus Jpeg mode, and it's really handy to be able to press this and enter that mode without having to mess around with any menu settings. If you turn to the main command dial in the top left corner, you'll also notice a couple of other unique features. Here the TAV mode stands for Combined Shutter and Aperture Priority Mode. What happens here is you choose the shutter speed and aperture, and the camera will find a sensitivity to match. Working in reverse to that is the Sensitivity Priority Mode, or SV. What this does is allow you to choose the sensitivity that you want, maybe 400 or 800 ISO, and the camera will find an aperture and shutter speed to match. If we have a look on the other side, you'll see that the K10D is equipped with a decent sized screen with plenty of information on it. And there's also a really bright backlight. If I press this button here, you'll see it illuminate pretty bright green. Now let's take a look at the K10D's menus. When you first switch the camera on, it tells you which exposure mode you're in and also gives you help as to what the various dials are going to operate. If you press the info button to the left of the screen, you're presented with a wealth of shooting information. That includes the current lens focal length and also the exposure at the point at which you press the info button. If you have a look at the back of the K10D though, you'll notice there's no obvious controls for adjusting the ISO or white balance. To do that, you'll need to press the FN or function button here to the bottom right of the screen. If you enter the ISO settings, you can obviously adjust them up and down as normal, but the K10D offers quite an interesting feature when you put it to auto. Here it's saying that the finger and the thumb wheels will actually allow you to set an upper and lower limit to the ISO range in auto. So let's change that. It's currently set to a lower limit of 100 ISO, so if I turn the thumb wheel we can say increase that to 160, and it's saying that the thumb wheel will operate the upper limit, currently at 1600. If I turn that, we can actually reduce that to say 640 ISO. That's quite a neat feature to have. If we put the camera into play mode, we can overlay various graphics on the screen to give us more information. So if I press the info button, you'll see here we've got some exposure details, an RGB histogram, and it's saying here that if I push the up button, we can switch that to a brightness histogram. Pressing the info button again gives you a thumbnail view and a great deal of other information. Now you'll notice that this picture was taken in the RAW plus JPEG mode, and the K10D actually allows you to process RAW files inside the camera. To do that, you press the function button and you'll see here are the options in playback. If I push the button down, we can actually process this RAW file into a JPEG image. It's now saying develop this image. Let's go to the next option. And as you can see, we can actually adjust a variety of settings here, the resolution, the quality, the white balance, and also the sharpness, contrast and saturation settings. The K10D is certainly a feature-packed digital SLR, but how does it perform in practice? Well, in terms of the shake reduction system, it certainly allowed us to handhold much longer exposures than we would be able to normally while avoiding camera shake. And of course the benefit of having it built into the body is that it will work with any lens you attach. No need to go out and buy expensive stabilised optics then. However, the disadvantage of body-based stabilisation, such as also the Sony A100, is that you won't see the effect through the viewfinder. If you're using a powerful lens and you're fully zoomed in, the image will be wobbling away, and you've just got to take the camera's word for it that behind the scenes it really is doing the stabilisation. Speaking of which, we found the stabilisation was perhaps not quite as effective as some rival systems, so check out the full review at cameralabs.com to see an example of that and how it compares. However, the same system that shifts the sensor for stabilisation proved actually pretty effective at getting rid of dust. It didn't get rid of all of it, but it got rid of most of it, which is not bad going for a digital SLR like this. There's also no denying that the K10D has got plenty of unique features, many of which you won't find on other digital SLRs, especially at the price. For example, the weather-resistant sealing. Some of the unique features like the choice of RAW modes, in-camera RAW processing, and exposure modes like sensitivity priority. Now, some of these may seem like a novelty, but some of them are genuinely useful, and it really does elevate the K10D above a lot of rival models costing the same money. So what's wrong with the K10D? Well, for us it's the image quality using the default settings. If you were to take the K10D straight out of the box and start taking photos, you may be slightly disappointed by the image quality that you get from it. Nothing wrong with the level of detail, there's certainly plenty of detail packed into the images, but the images themselves can look slightly lifeless, a little bit dull or flat compared to, say, the output from rival models like the Nikon D80 or Canon 400D. Also, we found that the K10D had a tendency to underexpose slightly. Now, these are all things that you can correct for very easily on the K10D. You could go into the menus and boost the sharpness, the contrast, the saturation, and there's a wealth of exposure compensation modes to ensure that this camera is taking exactly the pictures that you want it to. However, you will have to put in a bit of work with K10D. You will have to learn its foibles, how it works, how to get the best from it. So if you're after a camera that just works straight away without any adjustment, this perhaps isn't the model for you. If, however, you are after a quality digital SLR and are willing to put a bit of work into learning how it works to get the best from it, the K10D should certainly be up there on your list. To see how it compares against rival digital SLRs and for examples of its output, check out our full review at www.cameralabs.com.